Well, pleased to have in the studio today our end of the week and weekend announcer, Ryan Almquist. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi, thanks.
Hey, you are a student at Frontier School of the Bible, and I just want
Yes.
to ask you a little bit about that. What's it like being you're a freshman?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
so what's it like being a freshman there at Frontier?
It is fantastic. I was able to go to their yearly event called Frontier Focus during my senior year of high school. That's two 3-day program they have every year to give students an idea of what the school's like. And from that, I just knew it was both that God was calling me there and that I really wanted to go as well. So
Great.
since then, I've just been really excited to go, and I'm really excited to be here in the spring semester of my freshman year.
Now, I understand that your mom and dad were kind of instrumental in even wanting to urge you to go there. So was that something you went to kind of at their urging, say, hey, let's go to that? And they had
Partially, yeah. Another big factor was my pastor, Dan Bohannon at Bridgeport Community Church. He's an instructor at Frontier, so he was also one that talked to both my parents and myself about and encouraged me to check out the school.
What kind of classes are you taking there at Frontier?
It's a wide variety of classes. They're all Bible classes, all focusing on Bible or doctrine and those aspects. So right now I'm taking some classes on dispensations. Let's see, Victorious Christian Living. Last semester I took a class on personal evangelism and an introduction to missions, and also taking doctrine classes. There's so many classes. Also taking a lot of music classes too, which are very good as well.
What kind of things do you see God teaching you over this first year that you're there?
Just really, it's just been a growing experience for me. Of course, it's my first step out of the home, so that's a growing experience in and of itself. But also just being around so many like-minded Christians who are really passionate about what they believe, and they're really seeking to learn more. And just all the knowledge that's being presented to us, it's in some ways it's mind-boggling, and it's a little hard to process. But it's very exciting. I'm really excited to be learning so much.
Are you looking at this point of maybe going into, as a career, something in the ministry? Is that something that you're looking at this point?
Right now, I'm not necessarily looking at a career in ministry, although I'd definitely be open to it if God would lead that way. I am looking into some different areas of media or film production possibly, but if I were to attend Frontier all 3 years, I'd be looking at their music program or youth program, and so I would take those classes and hopefully be able to apply those in some form of ministry in the churches I would serve at in the future.
So all those high school kids out there, if you could speak to them for a moment, would you recommend that they maybe take, before they pursue another course, a career, maybe taking in some Bible college training? Would you recommend them doing that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great, for one thing, it's a great stepping stone from being at home to the real world, especially if you're homeschooled. I have so many wonderful things to say about homeschooling, but one thing that could be perceived as a downside is that you are kind of sheltered from the real world in some senses. So Frontier is a great stepping stone for moving into the real world, but still going in with a biblical foundation and just being very strengthened in your faith.
You talked about music, and what other extracurricular activities have you been involved in there at Frontier?
Well, there's music major with the music classes, and I'm taking a few of those classes now. Really good classes and really good instructor as Colin Lundstrom's heading up the music music degree there, and I'm also able to take part in being on the worship team. They have 2 chapel services a week in the evenings, and I'm able to take part in serving on their worship team. And the other 2 big music opportunities are the Voices of Praise Ensemble Choir and the Italy team. The Frontier Holiday Carolers.
Now, anyone who knows you knows that music is a very, very big part of your life. It has been. I imagine since the earliest of ages, you've enjoyed music, and that music gave you the opportunity for the experience of a lifetime in traveling overseas. Before we get to the details of that, I want to ask you, have you ever traveled overseas before?
Never in my life. I'd never been outside of the United States, not even to Alaska or Hawaii, so it was definitely a brand new experience.
Well, what was that? What was that like to experience a different culture? If you could just kind of give us a picture of what that was kind of like.
It was It's hard to describe. It was very different, but also very similar at the same time. Just because Italy is still a first world country, it isn't like a missions trip to Africa or some obscure island in or surrounding Asia or in the Pacific. It's still very much a third world or first world country, excuse me. But at the same time, you still have the different or some cultural differences, and just the people have a different feel to them, a different. If I want to use the term vibe, I guess. It just the people approach you differently, speak differently. Of course, Italian as opposed to English, but it was a very fascinating experience, and I would hope to be able to learn more about them in the future.
So let's talk a little bit about that trip that you got to take to Italy, and that was with that singing group, that one of those singing groups.
Yes, the Frontier Holiday Carolers, or we got to be known just as the Italy group. It was just what people pretty much came to know us as.
Now, I know that in times past anyway, I've heard that while you're traveling there to your destination, you dress in Dickens-type attire, for those who have kind of experienced that, for those groups that have traveled around the area here. And I know that has afforded many opportunities for ministry just in traveling over there.
Yes.
Did you see that in this trip that you took? Did you have some opportunities to minister there? What was that like?
Yes. Actually, it's a lot of it is just people spotting us in our costumes, and whether we're in America and they might recognize that we're carolers, we'd be able to sing for them, give them some tracks in English. We have tracks in both English and Italian. So while we're here in the States, we can give tracks as well. So we have opportunities to sing in airports and even on one of the planes, on one of the flights over, and we're able to hand out tracks that way. So that was very exciting. What
was the response as you sang, like on the airplane? How did that come about, and what was the response of the folks?
Well, we have to wear our costumes on the plane with us while we travel, because that the costumes are a major part of our ministry. If we don't have our costumes, and we're just 8 Americans singing in Italy, and it isn't quite as much of a draw. So the costumes are very important. So we take them with us on the plane. We wear them, and one of the flight attendants spotted us and asked us if we could sing on the plane or on one of the flights, and we were able to.
What was a song or two that you got to sing there?
I couldn't tell you the exact songs, but we usually, 2 of our most popular songs were Away in a Manger, a special version by Go Fish, and also It's About the Cross. So I believe I'm sure we sang those on the plane.
We're visiting with Ryan Almquist and talking about this trip that he got to take with the Frontier Holiday Carolers over to Italy this last Christmas season. And we'll be back to visit more with him right after a quick break and listen to some music. You're listening to Local Christian Radio, KCMI. We have Ryan Almquist in the studio today. Ryan went to Italy this past Christmas with the Frontier Holiday Carolers from Frontier School of the Bible. And you were telling us a little bit about some of those ministry opportunities that you had in traveling over there to Italy, some of those that were afforded to you by the Lord. How about when you got over to Italy? What were some of the different ministries that you engaged in there?
Let's see. We had 5 or 6 different types of ministries, I guess you could say, different venues for singing. Of course, our main venues were concerts. We have a fair amount of evening concerts that were usually held in either a church or a theater, but that was open to the general public, and we were able to invite people to those concerts, and they would hear the gospel there and also receive tracks as well in their native language. Another venue we had was open air singing in open air markets, public singing. It's very fun experience to be able to just walk around downtown of a city in Italy and just sing to people and give them tracks and invite them to our concerts in the evenings. So that's a really neat opportunity. Among others, we sang in a lot of schools. We were able to sing to kids. We weren't quite as open to share the gospel there at the schools, but we were able to squeeze in a few little things and also be able to hand them tracks which had the full gospel in them. So that was very exciting. And we're also able to sing in the hospitals and nursing homes, minister to people there. Again, hand out tracks there. We weren't able to talk as much with the people individually or in a group setting just because we're going through the nursing home and the hospital, and there's lots of rooms, lots of floors to cover, but we're able to give them tracks and just encourage them too, and that was really a blessing.
What's the spiritual climate over there in Italy, and what kind of reception did you see at many of these opportunities to minister?
The spiritual climate over there, Italy is a very spiritually, or as far as Christianity they're very spiritually dead. Catholicism is definitely the predominant religion over in Italy, and there's lots of Catholic churches and basilicas, but really the people are very apathetic. That was actually kind of hard to see, is how the Catholic Church has poured so much money into basically what were tourist attractions to bring tourists in to see their grand basilicas, but ultimately, I mean, it's meaningless since they aren't leading people to Christ and they aren't bringing it back to the gospel. So that was a bit discouraging to see. But the evangelical church there is slowly growing, and it's really exciting to see them grow and to help them out even in a small way for just 3 weeks by bringing people to these churches and getting them interested in the gospel.
Did you see any kind of a softening at all in any, or did you get a chance to visit with any of the people that you ministered to and just kind of see that maybe the Lord was just really stirring in their hearts, and maybe there was an openness there that you were able to plant some seeds?
There were some, yeah. One of the slight drawbacks of this ministry is that it's very short-term, very temporary, so we aren't able to necessarily see all of the long-term ramifications of our ministry, but it's very important and very special to us to be able to have a way to bring people into the churches and get them at least exposed to the gospel and exposed to the idea of an evangelical church, because it's really a foreign concept to them. Lots of Catholic Italians think that the evangelical church is a cult. So it's just very encouraging to be able to introduce them to that, even if we can't see the long-term ramifications or results.
Now, you were over there working alongside of one of those churches, correct? Is that who invited you over and kind of saw you around and made those opportunities to minister available?
Yes and no. Yes and no. We were working with one primary missionary who's over there named Carmen Chug. She coordinated basically all of our concerts and all of our appearances, and she was just fantastic to work with. She's been working with the group basically from the beginning. So she's very committed to this ministry, and it's really great to work with her. But we also worked with lots of other missionaries too, or just native Italians who are there working in their evangelical churches. We were able to work with them a fair amount as well, going over to various cities and working within their cities.
You talked about the not quite so much openness to share in the schools. Were there other roadblocks or difficulties you had in your ministry that you experienced, or did things really kind of come together pretty well?
Overall, I think it came together very well. I'm trying to think of a specific example I could share with you, but overall it was very open. I mean, there was a couple challenges in ministry, as there always is, and of course it's all for His glory, and it all came out very well in the end, and it's just still a very awesome ministry.
Take us through just a typical day. Of course, you had some schools that you visited, and then you talked about some evening things you did. And so when did the day start? Was it really early morning and a long day? It sounds like it was fairly long.
Usually the days are fairly long, yeah. There is no such thing as a typical day in this ministry. It's so varied. But typically what would happen is we would get up decently early. Early over there is 9 o'clock, so that was kind of nice. But in turn, we also would get back pretty late at night. A typical day, we could go to various schools and nursing homes. We wouldn't always have an evening concert, but in general, we would have some form of concert in the evening, whether it be at a theater or a church. There were some days where we would have, there's one day we had 5 school concerts in a day, and then also an evening concert. And there's other days where we had just maybe 2 or 3 in a nursing home or a hospital, and then evening concerts. So it varied, but there's still lots of different opportunities for ministry.
What kind of accommodations did you have when you were over there? Did you stay with families over there? Did you stay in a hotel kind of arrangement, or how'd that work?
We stayed in a few hotels, mainly because some of the missionaries that they usually coordinate with were on home assignment. But in general, we stayed with missionaries and also Christians that just opened up their homes to us from the churches that we were ministering to. There was one opportunity where Michael, my fellow bass in the group, we stayed with an Italian family, spoke no English whatsoever, so we had to break out our Italian-English dictionary and try to form a few simple phrases and sentences to communicate with them. It wasn't very successful, but it was still definitely a really neat experience.
How many different locations did you go to? Different cities around Italy that you got to go to, and did you have like a home base there in Italy while you were there?
Yes, our home base was in Faenza, and just a side note, most of our ministry was in the middle part of Italy to the northeastern part of Italy. But Faenza was a couple hours north of Rome, and that was our home base. That's where the main missionary, Carmen, that's where she lived. So we had our base of operations there, but we visited, oh boy, I can't tell you how many, at least a dozen, maybe 24 cities during our stay there. And we'd cover multiple cities in one day often as well. So this covered a lot of ground in a very short amount of time.
We're visiting with Ryan Almquist about the Frontier Holiday Carolers and their missions trip over to Italy this past Christmas season. And Ryan, you have some songs that we want to treat our listeners to. Tell me, can you introduce a song or two that you want to play for them?
Yes. We have two songs here for you, two recordings. They're of our versions of O Come, O Come Emmanuel and Adeste Fidelis, which is Latin for O Come All Ye Faithful. And I just wanted to share a quick backstory on these recordings. It's really a neat opportunity to be able to share these with you because we recorded these at the Basilica of San Vitale, which was in Ravenna. And this isn't from a normal concert setting or anything like that. So the recording isn't perfect. There's still, we're in a museum, so there's still people walking around us and other noises from the museum that just comes with it. But it was very exciting to sing there, and the acoustics were fantastic. So I'm just really excited to be able to share these with you.
Well, let's take a listen to some of those songs by the Frontier Holiday Carolers. You're listening to Local Christian Radio, KCMI. You've been listening to music from the Frontier Holiday Carolers, So Come, O Come, Emmanuel, and Adeste Fidelis. I had to be corrected by my in-studio guest, Ryan Almquist. I wanted to say, O Come, O Come, or O Come, All Ye Faithful. And you said, well, no, you need to say it in Latin because that's what it was sung in.
Yes.
So is it hard to learn Latin?
It's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky because I mean we had our sheet music and it was written for us in how it would be spelled in the language and also the phonetic version of it, so we could kind of just sound it out. So I mean, it didn't entirely make sense to us, and I'm sure someone very familiar with Latin might have a few things to correct us on. But
sure.
But it was a lot of fun and really neat to be able to hear the final product and be able to sing it for the people there.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you if you understood it, anything that what you were singing.
Just from knowing "O Come All Ye Faithful" before, I could kind of figure it out.
Okay.
But there's a couple songs like our Italian songs. Our version of is to the tune of Jingle Bells, but it's called "La Notte Splenderà," and there's some lines in there. I mean, it has nothing to do with Jingle Bells. It's all about Jesus coming down to be born and to die. So it's basically the salvation message put to Jingle Bells, which is an interesting concept, but it works very well, and it was neat to be able to perform that for the people there.
Well, that had to be a real treat for the folks to actually hear some of that in their own language. For those especially who had trouble maybe speaking English, that they could actually understand those two songs.
Yeah, definitely. There's sometimes we'd ask people how our Italian was, and we get varied responses. But I mean, still, even if our Italian wasn't perfect, I think they definitely did appreciate it still.
Yeah. Now, you said that the elderly folks there that would... the O Come All Ye Faithful is really, really a special song to the older generation there because they learned that in Latin. Is that?
Yes, that was. I don't know about so much today, but back in their generation, it was a very popular song to be sung in the church at the time, Adeste Fidelis. So virtually anyone over 45, 50 would know that song, and especially in nursing homes, it was very popular. Many of the residents would start singing along with us once we started singing that, and it's also I think it's a very beautiful rendition of the song as well.
What was your favorite song that you got to do while you were over there? Was there a particular favorite that you really enjoyed?
That's a tough question. We had a repertoire of about, I think the final count was 42 songs total.
Really?
So there's lots of songs to choose from there. Definitely one of my favorites was Christmas Concerto. It was adapted. Actually, I believe that was one that Mr. Stearns, our choir director, he wrote the lyrics to that song because we had an instrumental version of that song that a group had done, but no lyrics to it. So he wrote the lyrics to that song, and just, of course, all about the Christmas story, Jesus coming down to be born and to die for us later on. So it's one of my favorites. It's a fast song, a little complicated, a little tricky. We purposely sang it extra fast a couple times just to see if we could do it, and it's just one of the more fun songs to sing. But there's so many good ones, so many great songs, some that I wasn't familiar with before, but now I remember for the rest of my life, and just really neat.
What was one of your favorite memories from being over there? What was, if something comes to mind, that's just like, this was just a real favorite memory that you got to experience?
That's another very tricky question because, I mean, in one way, the whole experience is just something that is just will always cherish those memories. There is one particular moment We were in, oh boy, let's see if I can, okay, the city was Trieste. It's in the very northeastern tip of Italy, and it was our final concert for the tour. We still had a couple more concerts afterwards, but as far as our actual tour, that was our last concert. And afterwards, we went to main city square, I guess you could say, and there was some very neat buildings there. I couldn't tell you the name of them. I'm sure they had some fancy Italian name, but it was just really neat to be able to take some photos there and just relax. We had our last concert. We were able to see the sea, and just a very neat experience.
Did you get to see do a lot of sightseeing while you were there?
A fair amount, yeah. We had, during our tour, we typically had 6 days of touring and 1 day off. So we'd have Sundays off. So on our Sundays, we would be visiting a city. We visited the city of Florence one Sunday. Another Sunday, I couldn't tell you exactly what we were doing, but we went to some various tourist attractions there. And then also, starting from the day before Christmas Eve, we went to Venice, spent the day in Venice, just sightseeing. And then we had some more opportunities to see some castles and other various attractions after that, and as well in Rome, too, the Colosseum.
How long were you over there? How many days?
I believe the final count came out to 29 days. It was 3 weeks and 1 day, so whatever the math is on that. My brain isn't functioning that well today, but 3 weeks and 1 day.
Did anyone get sick or anything? Did you have any troubles in those areas? Any sore throats or strained vocal cords?
It's generally to be expected that you'll get sick at some point during the trip. Towards the end of our concert tour, almost all of us were sick in one form or another. Most of us just, had sore throats and stuffy noses and the various symptoms of a cold there. I actually went into this trip with bronchitis, which was a little daunting, just because you're a singing ministry. You need to be able to sing to be a part of this ministry. So it was a bit tricky at first, but God really provided and got me through that. And still the ministry was profound. So I just thank Him for that.
Was it hard to adjust to any time change when you got over there?
Yeah, definitely. I think more the travel was difficult than anything. It's a long way over there, and so our longest flight was about 9.5 hours from going down there from Atlanta to Rome directly. So pretty long flight there, and then we left the airport here in Denver about 10:30 in the morning, and then we arrived at the airport in Rome about 7:30 in the morning. So then we still had to stay up the entire day over in Italy, so that kept us up pretty late, according to the time that our bodies are used to. But once we got over there, about a week or two, and we were able to adjust.
What's the time zone difference? Do you know?
It's 8 hours.
Okay, so you get ready to come back. Was it kind of hard to leave? Were you kind of getting used to it? And
in some ways, yeah. It was kind of a funny feeling, just realizing we were going to be coming back to the States, realizing that we're really used to this now. I mean, it's still totally foreign to us, but we just come to accept it as an everyday occurrence, and we just got used to it. But I think in a way also we're ready to come back as well, because it'd been a really fun 3 weeks, a very fulfilling 3 weeks being able to serve in that way, but it's also good to be able to come home and rest up a little bit.
So did it give you a desire for maybe doing some more foreign missions type stuff?
Definitely, I'd definitely be open to it. I have no idea where God would lead at this point, but another opportunity to serve in this choir or another music group or in some other way in foreign missions, if God would lead me that way, I'm definitely open to it.
And I was going to ask you if you're looking forward to maybe going again next year. Is that something you're planning on doing?
Very possibly. I mean, just every year they have a new batch of people audition, and this depends on how good the people auditioning are. But if I had the opportunity to go next year, I definitely would.
Ryan, thanks for taking time to share with us about your trip to Italy.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
If folks wanted to learn any more about that, can they visit the Frontier website? Do they have anything up there? Any pictures?
Yes, Frontier website, I believe they would. Website is frontierbible.org.
Okay.
And also you can just visit the contact information for the school. You could get in contact with Ken Stearns. He's the director of this music group, and just ask him for questions. You could come down to the school, visit, see one of our practices. Right now we're touring, the ensemble is touring the Voices of Praise Choir, so you could sit in on a practice, or this fall you could sit in on a practice for the Italy team as well, and then we'd love to be able to talk to you.
When did you start traveling or practicing, by the way?
Practicing, we started early September. is when we started practicing these songs. And we started our American touring in November. We went to churches in the area here on Sundays and a couple weekends as well.
So this is something that folks want to keep in mind if they want to have the Frontier Carolers actually come and sing
definitely.
in their church, and they can contact the school and say, hey, we've heard about these folks and we'd love to see them, or maybe they're familiar with you already, and say, we'd love to have you back at the church, so they can contact the school there.
Yes, definitely. We get booked pretty quickly because we only have 4 weekends there, 4 or 5 weekends to work with, but they could definitely get in contact with the school, and whether for the Italy team or the Voices of Praise choir, we'd love to talk to you about coming to your church.
And I understand the Voices of Praise choir is actually going to be singing at our KCMI banquet later on this month.
Yes,
so
I'm very excited for that. I believe February 28th is the day for that.
Last day of February.
Yeah, last day of February, and actually the day before we go on our spring tour to Wisconsin, Michigan, that area. Very excited, Minnesota. Very excited for that as well. So yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you at the KCMI banquet.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, for taking time to visit with us
All right,
today.
thank you very much.
You are listening to Local Christian Radio, KCMI.